listening inside. Not frozen in time, but waiting. Waiting for language that was never spoken. When you speak gently to yourself now, you're not just helping present you cope. You're repairing memory. You're rewriting neural pathways that once formed in fear. Every kind word you whisper inward is a note to the child you were. I see you. You're safe now. You matter. Your healing reaches backwards. It ripples into the moments you never got to feel held. So when you speak today, speak as if they're still listening, because they are. And with every word, you become the protector you once needed. There's a reason it feels heavy. You weren't just handed your own wounds, you're carrying generations. But you are also the one who dares to end the cycle, to pause, to reflect, to do differently. That takes courage and exhaustion and incredible grace. You don't need to heal everything alone, but you do need to recognize that your small steps matter. Every time you pause instead of yelling, every time you speak what was once unspeakable, every time you set a boundary with trembling hands, you're breaking chains. You may not see the full impact in your lifetime, but those who come after you will walk lighter because you chose to turn inward and say, "This ends with me." That makes you a healer, a warrior, a legacy in motion. And if your voice shakes, say it anyway. If your heart races, take the step anyway. You are the pattern breaker, and that matters more than you know. And if you're curious how control plays into this cycle breaking, Jean-Paul Lemaitre will meet you at 7 a.m. He has a way of making logic feel like freedom. Let's start here with something you've probably asked yourself 100 times. Why do I react like that? Why does a small comment spiral you into self-doubt? Why does a certain tone make your chest tighten? Why do you freeze, fawn, or flare up when something doesn't feel safe? You're not broken. You're wired. And that wiring was built in environments where you had to adapt just to survive. Every reaction you've ever had, every shutdown, every outburst, every over-explaining moment was once your brain trying to keep you safe. It's called a trauma-informed response. And it's not about drama. It's about protection. You may not need those same defenses anymore, but your nervous system doesn't know that yet. Our goal? To start retraining that system with safety, repetition, and truth. You're not too old to rewire. Neuroplasticity is real. Your healing isn't just spiritual, it's biological. We'll unpack more of that in the next segment, but for now, just breathe. You're not crazy. You're conditioned, and that can change. Here's the thing about the brain. It's got one job: keep you alive. And it takes that job seriously. Inside your brain is a tiny structure called the amygdala. Think of it as your personal smoke detector. Its job? Scan for danger 24/7. And when it thinks something's off, boom, it sets off the alarm. Your heart races. Your muscles tense. Your thinking brain shuts down. Sound familiar? That's not overreacting. That's a system doing what it was designed to do. But when you've lived through trauma, especially ongoing emotional trauma, your alarm system becomes hypersensitive. Suddenly, a raised voice, a silence, even a glance can trigger a full body reaction. This isn't weakness, it's biology. And the good news is, biology can be rewired. Through breathwork, grounding, therapy, and repetition, we can teach the brain what safety actually feels like again. And once it knows safety, it stops ringing false alarms. So no, you're not too sensitive, you're just healing. And that's powerful. Let's talk about where it all began, not to dwell in the past, but to understand the blueprint. Our childhood isn't just a memory lane. It's where our emotional patterns were downloaded. Think of your earliest caregivers as the programmers. Every time you were comforted, ignored, shamed, or praised, your brain took notes. If love was unpredictable, you may have learned to perform for approval. If anger filled the room often, you might have become a peacemaker to avoid conflict. These weren't conscious choices. They were survival codes. And the hardest part? We carry those codes into adulthood, often without realizing it. That's why the same arguments repeat in relationships. Why the same insecurities follow us into new jobs. Why healing feels so hard sometimes. You're not failing. You're just following programming that was never designed with your future in mind. But awareness is the beginning of agency. You can update the code. You can learn new patterns. You can be the parent to yourself that you might not have had. We call this reparenting, and it's a foundational step in emotional healing. You're not doomed to repeat the past. You're being invited to rewrite it. Reparenting is not about blaming. It's about naming what was missing and then becoming the person who gives it. If no one ever said, "I'm proud of you," you say it to yourself now. If no one held you when you cried, you learn to sit with your pain instead of numbing it. You can't change the past, but you can change the voice in your head. That voice matters more than you know. It's your internal caregiver now. When that voice becomes kinder, your nervous system begins to soften. You start making decisions from security, not fear. You'll begin to recognize the difference between a boundary and a wall, between protecting yourself and punishing others. Reparenting is daily. It's in the way you talk to yourself after a mistake, in how you let yourself rest, in the compassion you extend when the old patterns try to resurface. There's no deadline, no report card, just a quiet, steady rebuilding of safety and worth. You are not your upbringing. You are your unfolding, and you're allowed to evolve. It's meet someone who's been with you for a long time, your inner critic. You know the voice, the one that says you're not doing enough. That wasn't good enough. Why can't you be more like them? Here's what I want you to know. That voice didn't come out of nowhere. It was built. It might sound like a parent, a teacher, a bully, or even society itself. It learned that criticism could keep you in line. That self-judgment would make you strive harder. Stay safer, avoid rejection. But what helped you survive might now be what's keeping you stuck. Your inner critic isn't evil. It's afraid. And fear often dresses up as perfectionism, control, comparison, or shame. What does it fear? disapproval, failure, abandonment, being unlovable. But you're not a child anymore. You're not powerless. And the truth is, growth doesn't happen through harshness. It happens through compassion. So instead of silencing your inner critic, get curious about it. Ask it what it's afraid of. Listen without judgment. That's how healing begins, by turning conflict into conversation. Now let's talk about what comes next, because once you recognize the inner critic, you need a new voice to guide you. This is where the inner nurturer comes in, a voice that's not permissive or passive, but protective and kind. The inner nurturer says, "It's okay to rest. You did your best with what you had. You are still worthy, even when you struggle." When you replace the critic with the nurturer, you create a new emotional home, one built not on fear, but on safety. This isn't about delusion or toxic positivity. It's about truth. Because the truth is, you're trying, you're growing, you're healing, and that deserves honor, not ridicule. Practice this voice every day, out loud if you have to. Write it down. Repeat it. Make it louder than the critic. You are not the voice that wounds. You are the one who chooses which voice gets to stay. Let's talk about emotions. Not as problems to fix, but as messengers to listen to. Each emotion has a purpose. Sadness says, something mattered. Anger says, a boundary was crossed. Fear says, you don't feel safe. Guilt says, you value doing what's right. These feelings aren't flaws. They're signals. And when you ignore them, they don't go away. They go underground. They fester. They shout louder. But when you honor them, when you say, "I hear you," instead of "go away," something shifts. You start to trust yourself again. You become emotionally fluent. Imagine if you spoke to your emotions like you'd speak to a scared child. Gentle, patient, curious, not dismissive. That's emotional literacy. That's self-respect. You don't have to obey your emotions, but you do have to acknowledge them. Because they are part of you, not proof you're broken, but proof you feel. Now, what do? When those emotions feel overwhelming? When the storm rolls in? You regulate. You ground. You co-regulate with safe people. This might mean stepping outside for air, placing a hand on your chest and breathing slow. Naming what's real. I am safe. This feeling is temporary. I don't have to fix everything right now. You might do a body scan. Feel your feet on the floor. Wiggle your fingers. Sip cold water. You come back to now, because the nervous system lives in the present. Regulation isn't about perfection. It's about pausing the spiral, soothing the flare, reminding yourself, I've survived this feeling before, and I will again. This is self-therapy in motion. Not to avoid emotions, but to hold them without drowning. You've been taught that being strong means being unbothered, that emotional people are too much, and calm people are in control. But that's not strength. That's suppression. and suppression always leaks in sarcasm, silence, shutdowns. True strength? It's when you feel deeply but don't weaponize your feelings. When you express honestly without destroying connection. It's when you say, "I'm not okay right now," and trust that doesn't make you weak, it makes you real. Emotional strength isn't about hiding from your feelings. It's about letting them teach you without letting them take over. That's maturity. That's wisdom. That's the kind of strong that builds intimacy, not distance. Let's bust one of the biggest myths of all, that your needs make you needy. No, your needs make you human. And your ability to name them, that's what makes you safe to love. You're allowed to need comfort, to want consistency, to ask for reassurance, to crave space, to need time. Healthy relationships don't shame needs, they honor them. They negotiate, adapt, and communicate. When you were younger, maybe your needs were ignored. Maybe you learned to shrink them down to keep peace. But now you get to reclaim them. You get to ask, what do I need to feel safe? What helps me stay present? What do I want to feel seen? This is how healing happens. Not just in solitude, but in safe connection. Emotional regulation doesn't mean you never get upset. It means you recognize your signals early and respond with awareness. It's not about pushing feelings down. It's about creating enough space between the feeling and the action so you can choose. Choose to breathe. Choose to step back. Choose to speak with clarity, not chaos. You are not a slave to your reactions. They may be patterned, but they are not permanent. Every time you notice your heart rate spike, your voice rising, your jaw tightening, that's a moment of power. Because awareness is the first domino in the healing cascade. We can't change what we don't name, and every emotional reaction is trying to name something. Let's get this straight. The way you've learned to cope isn't the same as who you are. You are not your patterns. You are not your shutdowns. You are not your people-pleasing. You are not your outbursts. Those are adaptations, responses your nervous system picked when it didn't feel safe. But now, you're creating safety on purpose. Through breath, through reflection, through new connections. And in that safety, new patterns can grow. Patterns of pausing, of asking, is this true? Of naming your truth without apology. That's not fake. That's not trying to be someone else. That's you becoming more you beneath the survival strategies. Self-soothing isn't weakness. It's a biological necessity. It's how you tell your nervous system, we're safe now. In childhood, that comfort was supposed to come from a caregiver. A co-regulated space where your tears met calm arms. But if you didn't get that, you didn't fail. Your body just kept sounding the alarm until someone listened. Now that someone is you. And here's the beautiful part. Your brain can still learn safety. Neuroplasticity means you can teach yourself calm at any age. Through breath, through grounding touch, through reminders that you're not alone, through kind words to yourself instead of harsh silence. This is how self-trust begins, not by never getting triggered, but by knowing how to return to yourself when you do. When you've spent years numbing or avoiding emotions, the return to feeling can feel like drowning. Suddenly, everything hurts again. Even joy feels sharp. You wonder if you've made a mistake by opening the door. You haven't. You're just thawing. And thawing is messy. It's not a clean, graceful process. It drips, it aches, it shakes. But it's also sacred. It means your heart is waking up. It means you're no longer frozen. Feelings don't make you weak. They make you alive. They're data, not danger. You don't need to fear your own inner weather. You are not the storm. You are the sky learning to hold it. Healing isn't erasing the past. It's learning how to carry it differently. It's not about pretending it didn't happen. It's about understanding how it shaped you and choosing what gets to stay. Your body remembers, your mind repeats, but your soul is still curious. Every time you choose curiosity over judgment, you create space for healing. When you ask, "Why did I do that?" instead of "What's wrong with me?" you shift from shame to growth. Healing means asking better questions. It means replacing "I'm broken" with "What did I need?" It means learning new scripts for old fears, new responses for old pain, new boundaries that honor your wholeness. This is the classroom of your becoming, and every insight is a graduation. Healing is not a straight line. It loops. It spirals. It doubles back. It pauses. Some days you'll feel like you've made no progress at all. That's not failure, that's fatigue. Rest is not regression. It's integration. It's your system saying, "I need a moment to absorb this." Don't measure healing by how loud your victories are. Measure it by how quietly you keep showing up. There's power in the mundane steps, the journal entry, the walk, the moment you paused before reacting. That's not small. That's sacred repetition. Progress hides in the days you think don't count, but they do. They all do. Language is medicine. The moment you name a feeling, you soften its grip. I'm overwhelmed. I'm grieving. I'm scared. These aren't weaknesses. They're clarities. The brain is wired to chase certainty. And unspoken emotions, they feel like chaos. But when you name your experience, Kyori, you bring order to the storm. You give your nervous system a signal. We understand this. You don't need the perfect word. You just need to reach for one. Even saying, "I don't know what I feel," is a form of emotional honesty. Naming doesn't fix everything, but it gives you something to hold. And sometimes that's enough to stay present through the wave. You don't have to fix it all right now. You don't even have to understand it. You just have to feel it. This moment, this emotion, this ache, what if it didn't need a solution? What if your only task was to let it move through you? Like a tide, like a breath, like weather passing overhead. Fixing is the mind's reflex. Feeling is the soul's request. Let the feeling exist. Let it be witnessed. Let it tell its story, even if you don't fully grasp it yet. You're not lazy for not having an answer. You're human. And humanity isn't